Okay, you said you had something at 9. I didn't put 2 and 2 together, but I'll take it as the Celtics game. But
Well,
I spilled the beans.
it's actually not the Celtics game, but it is a game that's very important to my heart. But
okay, you said you had something at 9. I didn't put 2 and 2 together, but I'll take it as okay.
we're live on YouTube.
All right. So
What
what
I can tell you.
cover off on the minutes. Thank you, Claire, for sending them.
Yeah, sorry about sending those late. I had computer problems and the recovery price is like unbelievable. So kind of some of it's pretty good guesswork. But if so May 4th is the one that's time sensitive, and that was the meeting before the town meeting, and it's pretty much all votes on there.
So we'll do that one first.
Okay.
Did anybody have any edits? I had a couple. If you want me to go first.
Is that the one that you were asking for, Claire? Were you also asking to confirm some of our votes on that one? I'm trying to pull it up now.
Asking for what? I'm sorry.
Some of the votes.
Yes.
That was one, right? So I think.
Yeah, I don't remember the warrant articles. Can somebody?
I'll pull it up.
Go through it?
I have it here. I had to do this.
Okay, so if you look at line 33, that was the one that I couldn't figure out because the count was 3, 2, 1. And
Article 16 was the Neary one.
yes.
So I was the abstain. And
okay, all
I
right.
think it was Marcy. I want to say you were a nay.
Correct. Yep.
And Adam was a nay, and Eric, you were an aye.
I was an aye. Yep.
Okay.
I think Tim was a nay.
Tim was a nay, I think.
Yeah, right.
I was a nay.
So those are the two, and then Eric
Okay.
and Adam were yes, that seems right. Yep.
Perfect. Thank you. That solves my problem.
Is the numbers correct?
Article 16, yes, I think so.
It
3,
doesn't
2,
look
1
like-
is 6, so we had 6 people voting.
But we had 3 nay.
We had 3. No, sorry, we had 3 aye,
Yes.
2 nay, 1 abstain.
So then Adam voted for it.
Adam voted for it.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay.
It's
On-
backwards math.
Yep, and then I didn't write it down, Eric. I don't know. I think you were taking some notes, or I don't know if anybody else caught it. I think Kathy has it too. If we can ask her for Article 25, which was the St. Mark's Street. I know I think this is right. We voted 6-0 to re-vote it, but then we did re-vote it.
Yes, at least 4 people were against it.
I think it was. I don't know what the re-vote was.
I know I was supportive of it. Andrew, I think you and I were supportive of it because we were both.
Yeah, I think I was the only one in favor, and then maybe we went to 2 or something like that.
Yeah, I think that's right. Yep.
Okay.
Yeah.
It was
You and I know that you and I were of the opinion of, we were like, at this point, we'd rather have the land than not have it. We don't agree with how it happened, but we want the land.
And I believe I if I remember correctly, I was making the motions, you were seconding them. So Claire, we can just add a motion to support Article 25. I'll move it. Eric will second. And I think it was.
And it was 2 for 2
Correct.
approved it. You and Eric were in favor of supporting it.
Yeah, and then the 4 were against.
Okay, all righty, perfect.
Yep.
Thank
And
you.
then
Sorry
for the
about
next
that.
one, we had Article 35, which I think we did vote on, which was the Waishan one for the recall.
Right.
So I think that was an
Did
actual,
it-
just change it
it was
from
an
a
actual
straw vote
vote?
to an actual motion. I believe it was an actual motion.
Okay, perfect.
And I think we also voted Article 32, which was the Waishan article for the, not using public funds to improve property. Does anybody recall if we did or not?
Trying to find my notes.
1 second, 30.
So I don't think we did. I
Okay.
believe I remember Kathy saying we weren't going to vote it until we actually heard from him, and he never came to us.
Yeah, but this was
I think
I
that's
feel
what
like for some
happened.
reason we were at town meeting and he didn't show, so we were like, should we just vote it anyway?
I think we decided,
remember.
Andrew, to wait and hear the presentations. I think that's
I
what
think-
happened.
I think you're right. Yeah,
Yeah.
but I think we did vote on the recall one. If I remember correctly.
Yes, okay.
Okay.
So,
Okay, so I think we're good there.
so here's the question that I have. With a lot of these votes, that was the mistake that was done in the warrant.
I
Where,
think that was in the draft warrant that we had. I think the final one was okay.
oh, okay. I'm
Wait, so what?
going from the one that I picked up at town meeting.
Oh, really?
There was.
There were some errors
So
in
you're
it.
saying that were there errors on the vote count for advisory?
Yes, because
Any vote that, well, not any, because I think we were unanimous, but unanimously supportive was the default if we had not taken a vote or submitted a vote, was how it appeared in the warrant.
I think we did change some of ours.
yeah, right. And those are noted in the
Yeah.
notes.
Okay, then I think that's fine, Claire.
Okay, all right. I mean, it's kind of after the fact,
Yeah.
but just in case somebody decides to go back and
Okay, can I have a motion to approve the minutes for May 4th as edited?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second,
Okay, any discussion? Seeing none. Roll call vote. Eric,
aye.
Marcy,
Aye.
Tim.
Aye.
Andrew is aye. Okay, that's the 5-4. Next is the 525.
Oh. Adam is in the audience.
Oh,
Sorry, Adam.
I guess we can bring him over. There he is.
Hey, sorry about that. I can
No
never
worries.
find the link to get in as a panelist.
It's tricky. Sometimes we were talking about that. Sometimes you get it, sometimes you don't. So it's I don't. There's no rhyme or reason. I can't figure out why. But any other edits on the May 4th?
No, I'm good with the minutes.
All right, May 25th minutes. Anybody have any edits?
I've got a couple very minor, just clerical. So Claire, line 20, there should be a space between EF and stated. Also line 19, you've got me as ED, should be EF. Very minor. Otherwise,
line 19, I have you, oh, okay, thank you.
otherwise substantively, everything looked great to me.
So the question that I have is the recording, if I remember this correctly, the actual recording does not, on line 3, does not really have the meeting being called to order. But if I remember correctly, there was something that happened on the technical end with what you were doing, Eric, that
So we started the meeting and we recorded it on Zoom, but we were a little late starting it on YouTube. And I think the one
Okay.
posted is the YouTube copy. I might shoot an email to
okay,
Jay and see if he can post the Zoom copy instead.
okay. Is that something you want me to do, or you want to do it, or
Sure, if you can do that, would be great.
okay,
I know some committees don't go live on YouTube, so he has to post it manually. So he should have both copies.
okay.
Any other edits? Okay, Claire, I had a couple on line 32.
Mhm.
There may be a need for more money to cover minute taker charges in advisory budget. If you just add that.
Take a check. Oh, okay. Got it.
And then in line 33, I think it should say IT budget instead of Board of Health. So it's the printer for the Board of Health, but it was in the IT budget.
Okay, all right.
And
But it still would be able to,
they should be able to cover it within their budget, yeah.
okay,
But it was a technically, we had kept it in the reserve fund is a possible need, but it looks like it should be covered. They should have plenty of room in their budget for it.
Okay.
What else? Line 65. I think it should be come instead of dome.
I think you're right.
And then line 67, I think there's a N in front of different. I'm not sure what that. Is it indifferent or
To
different?
67 due to COVID. The COVID regulations were different.
Different? Okay. Yep.
Not-
And then the last one is line 73. I think when Paul was talking, it was like therefore it is in the best interest of, I would say, like the various boards and committees to work with advisory,
Gotcha.
just to spell out, like, it wasn't our committee to work with advisory. It's like the different various boards and committees. But other than that, looks great.
Committees to work with advisory.
Any other edits? Okay, do I have a motion to approve the May 25th meeting minutes as amended?
So moved.
Have a second?
Second.
All those in favor, roll call. Eric,
Aye.
Marcy,
Aye.
Tim,
Aye.
Adam,
Aye.
and Andrew's aye. All right,
Thanks, guys.
thank you, Claire. Okay, chair report. Okay, so not much update on the Neary Building Committee. We haven't met since our last meeting, and still haven't heard anything back from MSBA, so not a whole lot moving there. In terms of reserve fund interdepartmental transfers, since our last meeting, I received a couple emails with some new ones. Let me just pull them up. There's a possible one for the fire department, maybe an interdepartmental transfer, maybe a reserve fund. Fire repair and rescue maintenance is 6,000 over budget. And mostly due to not accounting for the hose and ladder testing. And then there was a Juneteenth payout for overtime. I think select board decided to add that holiday to the list of holidays, even though it wasn't in the contract. So that was about $5,000 there. And they had to move the EMC radio site, which is about 3,000. So all in all, it's roughly about 15,000. Could be, they still have some room in their budget maybe to absorb it, but Chief Achilles wanted to at least make us aware of those in case he can't absorb it. And there needs to be either a reserve fund or an interdepartmental. Certainly we have the room for it, but I wanted to bring it to everybody's attention. And there may be, I don't know the dollar amount, but there may be a need for an interdepartmental transfer or reserve fund for payout to Chief Paulus. I think everybody saw the separation agreement and what was going on there, but obviously that was an unbudgeted expense. So we'll see it when it comes through, what the dollar amount is there. And I think that's all I have for now. Any questions on those? Okay, and then update on St. Mark Street project. This is basically, I don't know if anybody watched the select board meeting from the other day, but it sounds like the select board's putting a halt on the project for now, while St. Mark's does their study. And I think Marcy, you were on the call as well, so you heard the same thing. So correct me if you or add anything. And then they're going to talk to St. Mark's about trying to look at a land swap instead of an easement, which I think is a good movement. And that they're continuing to have the St. Mark's working group look at options for the park. I think they're talking about expanding their charge to kind of make it more, instead of just the circle in the middle, more the park in general. But that's the latest on that park.
What about the history walk?
That's kind of included in there. Like, what do you do with that area in general?
Yeah, because that speaks right, Andrew, to the whole, are we actually fulfilling the requirements of the grant?
And I think so. So, I mean, I'm not the expert on this, but in the communication to and from the DOT was aware that they were removing some requirements, and they were going to remove, I think, the history walk. So, and that was before we started. So I'm not an expert, but I would assume DOT is doing their audit, I believe, and all that kind of things on this. But if they let us move forward with the project while knowing that we were going to take it out, even though it was in the title, I think we're okay there. But I think the select board's also talking about maybe using additional funds or something to complete the history walk. And Marcy, I think Kevin is certainly involved in that conversation, if you know anything more.
No, I would just add that the St. Mark's Working Group has done quite a bit of talking about the history walk, and Grant Farrington did a couple presentations from neighboring towns and even in another state, some examples. So I think it's still on the table, Tim, to answer your question. It seems like the St. Mark's Working Group is definitely considering that as part of their design, if you will.
All right.
Can you hear me?
Yep.
I just went to a headset. What about the supposed news we heard at town meeting about the new burial investigations? What's the scuttlebutt on that?
I believe St. Mark's has already contracted with the company. And it sounds like, the company is very reputable and very knowledgeable. I think right now they're waiting on the permits from the state to start the dig. And then, going forward, so the idea is for that to finish before any more work continues. But in the meantime, I think the select board is going to start having conversations with St. Mark's about entering into a land swap instead of an easement.
And what happens if it's extensive and the whole thing gets shut down?
I mean, it's shut down right now.
I mean, permanently shut down.
I think it's, we'd have to cross that bridge. I mean, it's probably not uncommon or unheard of for a DOT project to get stopped mid-construction for some kind of archaeology finding. So, I would assume there's some kind of process there, but I don't know if anybody knows more. But
I believe at that point, Tim, it falls under a lot of state rules and regulations. So if they were to find something during the dig, there would be a lot more information, I think, coming to the table related to what would have to happen next. That would be dictated by the state. But I could be wrong in my understanding of that. I don't see any attendees that might have more information, but it's being discussed in some of the meetings. I know that. Great.
I just want to make certain we don't spend any money until we have answers.
Yeah, no, that was kind of the direction that is the message from select board, was to tell the construction and the road people to focus on downtown, not to focus on the park or even Deerfoot Flag intersection for now, till that sorts itself out as well. Okay. Future budget planning process. So there was a meeting we had of the finance team, Kathy Cook, myself, and Chelsea, just to kind of talk about how we do budget process going forward, and kind of talking about what next steps on that. We haven't completely nailed down the process, but I think we're going to try to streamline it between select board and ourselves. Most likely look to do the usual meeting with the department heads, boards and committees, et cetera, and the October, November, December timeframe, do the usual, give us your narrative, tell us about your what you're working on, what are you doing. Maybe we do a little bit of pushback, with whatever budget they submit then. Then the idea would be in January sometime to do a joint meeting with the Board of Selectmen, maybe on a Saturday or something, and have it be kind of like a good chunk of the day, and have anyone that we want to come in to challenge their budget, kind of do it together, so that each department head isn't meeting with both select board and advisory, and they're challenging this and we're challenging that, to kind of do it all in one setting, to make it a little more efficient for everybody. What
Andrew,
else?
my
Sure.
only concern is that, by that time, a lot of the decisions have already been made about targets, right? Are we going with level service, or what is our financial
Yep.
goal for the year? And I really still think that advisory needs to have input into how our financial policies for the year are set.
Yep. And the idea is, before those September, October meetings, we'll have a joint meeting with select board as well and come up with that philosophy. Do we want to do level set funding, level set service? Do we want to, so on and so forth. So that was part of the conversation, was before we start it, we need to both agree on what the rules of the road are. Give that to the department heads, have them come forward to advisory. The select board can watch all of our meetings and listen to the meeting and hear what the department heads, et cetera, need to say, but use us as the vetting engine for that first piece. And then once we get into the nitty gritty, once all the budgets are in, where are we at in terms of percentages, and we need to start, nickel and diming here and there, we could do that together in a more, streamlined fashion.
Great.
Yep. They also mentioned that they're starting to look at other budget softwares. We tried ClearGov, but it was a little bit of a headache for the finance department in terms of how they did the integrations. I guess ClearGov has made some strides, so they might take a second look at it again, but I think they're looking at some other vendors and just trying to, kind of look at that process from that avenue as well. I don't know if it'll be a 23 project or a 24, but that was one thing that they mentioned that kind of falls into this bucket. I do think that for next year, I think we should probably start posting some of these budgets or some of the process, on maybe the advisory's website. If we don't have ClearGov anymore, we can't give people access something for the public to see as we go through the process, besides just our meeting minutes. But we'll work on a communication plan for that when we get closer to budget season. Any other thoughts on that?
Andrew, what are some of the examples of the software?
So we use there's a software called ClearGov last year or the year before. And basically they load in the prior year budgets and expenses out of the general ledger. And, that's where the department heads did their forecast. That's where they put their narratives. But it was pretty good from an end user perspective in terms of we could see the data, and I liked it a lot. It was a little hard to get reports out and things like that. But it was very difficult from a maintenance perspective for them to load the data, to get the data out. It was a pretty new software. We were kind of almost beta testing it. So we decided not to renew that for this year, and just go back to the spreadsheet.
So does it link up with their expense reporting and whatnot? Or?
You can load it, but it wasn't a very good ETL. It wasn't like an automated ETL or an API or anything like that. So it was, somebody would have to create an import file and do it manually, but the lines didn't always line up. And so you'd have to massage it a little bit. That's where I think some of the headache was. So I think they're starting to look at other softwares, and I think, anything that can take our expense software. Budget and forecasting is basically, you have your GL system with your actual expenses plus your budget, and the next year you want a blank next to it to put in what you think you're going to do going forward, and maybe some version controls, etc. So it's not terribly complicated, but I think it's looking at what the different tools and functionalities can do, and more from a system owner ability versus an end user. All right. So the next two can kind of be combined. So it's kind of just figured, we had talked last meeting about kind of a, committee or a board. I don't want to call it liaison, but somebody that kind of follows the committee or board and can come back with, hey, this is what they're working on with, we can kind of go around the horn and kind of do it as a overall education for the committee, because I don't have time to watch every every Zoom meeting, and I don't know if anybody else does, but I think it would be beneficial. I think some of us watch different ones to kind of get everybody up to speed at the beginning of each meeting. I thought that could dovetail into like a budget liaison as well. If you're, kind of following those committees, you could also kind of be the budget liaison for those committees. So what does everybody think of that kind of structure?
I like that idea, Andrew. I mean, it sort of spins off what we did already.
Yep.
The format we used already a little bit, but maybe a little more on the education side about what's going on, I guess, with that committee, perhaps.
Yeah, I like it too, Andrew. I think Eric might have made this point on the last meeting that it's such a crammed schedule, and maybe it normally won't be, but I feel like it would allow us to have time to digest and think through the budget and get to know some of their puts and takes a little bit better than trying to do it on the fly.
Town meetings usually in March, right?
Yeah.
we had all the way to May.
Okay. Let me just find their department list. Okay. So in terms of budgets or liaisons, is there any that people follow closely that they would want to cover?
I'll take MTC, Board of Health, and CPC.
Okay.
Community Preservation Committee.
MTC, IT, and CPC. Not CIPC.
No.
Okay.
Tim, did you mentioned you wanted to do Board of Health?
Yeah, I'll do Board of Health. Board of Health, IT, and Community Preservation. Unless somebody else wants it.
I wouldn't mind doing Board of Health only because I had started out doing it, but if
Take it.
I don't know if you have a
No,
reason.
take it. It's all yours.
So I will include CPC as its own line. They don't have their own budget, Tim, but you'll be the guy. Let's see. I don't mind doing select board. I usually end up watching theirs. I guess I'll be advisory committee.
You're going to want to back up for select board.
Yeah.
I can be backup. I always watch the meeting. Pretty much always. Andrew, I could take planning board. I also watch planning board almost every
Okay.
time. I don't know if I don't know if we had somebody assigned to planning board last time, but
So I don't think we did. Their budget's relatively small. So this is
Right.
where it gets kind of
It's a little
interesting.
bit
Is
weird.
there's some that are very important boards and committees in terms of what goes on in the town, but maybe have a small budget, so we don't really have a liaison.
Right.
But it doesn't hurt if, to have both.
I could keep the two that are in the spirit of what Adam is saying. I could keep Council on Aging and Youth and Family Services, since I'm a little familiar with what they're doing, and pick up planning board.
Okay, Council on Aging, Youth Commission, all right. And does everybody want to kind of keep what they had? I don't mind keeping police and fire. We also, we have Howard joining soon, so we can also assign some to him. Eric, you want to keep DPW?
Sure. Yep.
I guess DPW and Public Works Planning Board.
Yeah, that should be easy for me because they never meet, right?
Correct. That's good.
But what's going to happen is they're going to start meeting and I'm not going to hear about it. So I'll I'll be delinquent, I'm sure. Yeah, but I think that's an interesting conversation point too, Andrew, which I know we talked a little bit on the last meeting. Right, so like DPW doesn't, unless I'm missing something, I don't think they have a lot of posted meetings, right? It's not a committee, but it is a department that has a fairly large budget and also currently is at the center of lots of people's minds. So I think that's also sort of my perspective here is I think, where can we dig in or get a little bit more connected to some of these budgets? Not to say we haven't been connected, but perhaps have a little bit more, a deeper understanding of what's going on a regular basis or what some of the bigger strategic projects are versus just in the budget season. And I see that as not, I'm not saying that necessarily from an oversight, like, what are you guys doing? I don't, we obviously have the financial oversight role, but I also think it's how can we help with strategic planning or bring resources, right? Or bring a new research topic to the field. So just want to be clear about that. But I do think a couple of these departments would probably benefit from, or we'd benefit and they benefit likewise. Must be a little more involved.
Other committees, personnel board, does anybody frequent theirs? We could also ask Howard, or hopefully we'll get another new member. I'll leave that one as blank.
I don't have any interest in that one, Andrew, if he's not interested.
Okay, we'll leave it open for now. Another one, Concom. I actually sometimes watch those, so I don't mind taking that one. Did anybody catch the ZBA's meetings? I'm gonna leave that as a question mark as well. We don't have to cover every meeting, but I think certainly EDC is another one.
They tend to meet early in the morning, right?
Sometimes, yeah. I mean, I always watch the replays. I don't catch anything live. Board of Health, library trustees.
That was Tom.
Yeah, is that
Okay.
that's for library? I wouldn't mind doing that one.
Okay. Recreation. I don't mind doing that one, but I'll put a question mark on there just because I think I have my name next to a bunch right now.
Yeah, I don't mind that one either, Andrew. But
Okay.
again, we want to spread the wealth around too with new members. So
yeah, it's just like one of those, like I watch, I probably watch more than half of the rec meetings. So it's one of those where I'm going to watch them anyway, and nobody else is going to watch them.
yeah, I'm probably not going to watch them, but I wouldn't mind getting involved with their planning and whatnot. But
yeah,
so you can let me know.
Okay, I'll leave that one as a question mark.
Hey, Andrew.
Yep.
Sorry, going back to EDC, I feel like I'm sitting here quiet, not put my name up for any committees that meet versus just the DPW. So I'd be happy to try to put an effort into catching the recordings of EDC.
Sure.
We haven't talked about capital. We haven't talked about the schools yet.
Haven't gotten there quite yet.
Well, that's why I jumped on EDC fast.
Hold on, EDC. Historical, like Marcy, I think both you and I watch most of those. So
Yeah, I'm happy to do that or abstain from that. I don't know what the best path is, but we pretty much know what's going on there. That's right.
yeah, I mean, I'll put you down for that. I mean,
All right,
you
that's
can give the update. I mean,
Sure.
and you could even work on the liaison. I mean, their budget's $3,000 or no, $1,000. So I don't
We
think
can
we're
do that.
gonna fault you for any conflict of interest on their sign
right.
program.
Perfect. I will keep everyone up to date there.
Okay. All right, then we have CIPC. So I usually watch most of those, but did anybody else catch those? All right, I'll take that one just because I was on it. I don't usually catch the school committee meetings. Does anybody watch any of those?
Take Algonquin.
Okay. And I'll put a question mark for the K through 8. Adam, you want to take the benefits again?
Sure, I could do that.
Right. And who had facilities last year? Didn't remember. Might have been Tom.
Might have been Tom or Kathy. I'm not sure.
Yeah, I'll put a question mark on that one. There's the ADA committee as well, but I think they haven't met too much. I'll put a question mark on that one. Okay, I think we have a pretty good grouping for now. I'll send out the list after the meeting.
Mr. Chair,
Okay, this clear?
it is. Can I just review what I have, because I was writing these down as we went through, so just to double check.
I'll just put it in an email, Claire, and then you can just
Okay.
add the chart in.
Okay.
That makes it easier.
All right.
Okay. All right. So now, any more questions on the liaisons or that? I think we're pretty good there. Next agenda item is CPA overview. Let me just I put a couple slides together. So let me know if you can see that.
I don't see anything yet.
Oh, yeah.
Is that any better?
No.
Nope.
Hold on.
Is this a chair problem? Does it come with a seat?
I don't know. There we go. You see that now?
Yes, sir.
All right. Sometimes it doesn't like it when you do full screen. So I'll just do this screen. So just, high level overview, which most of you already know. So right now in Southborough, we have a 1% CPA surcharge. We have 2 exemptions, one for low income and one's the first $100,000 of residential real property. It was passed in 2003. It was originally failed in 2001 when we went for 3%, but only 49 to 51. So right, a pretty close vote. Tim, were you there for that vote? Okay. Or Claire, you might have been. Anyway. So that's our current status of CPA. So this is basically how much money we have made or collected since we started CPC. Just to get you an idea. And when CPA was started, we were getting 100% match on our money. And it's dwindled and it started to dwindle, but the last few years it's been steadily increasing. So this last year we were about 44% match.
Andrew,
Yep.
Can you give like a Cliff Note version of how this works?
So in your tax bill, you'll see your regular property taxes, and then below you'll see a CPA surcharge. And what it is right now is it's 1% of your tax amount, right? So say the average property tax bill is $10,000, right? It'd be 1% of that, it'd be $100, right? So
After the first 100,000.
After the first 100,000, yeah.
It's a really small amount.
Okay, and then that goes into some account that the town
It goes,
manages.
the state yeah, so it goes into the town, the state will match a certain percentage, and it's based upon also some characteristics about how many people in your town and they call the decile, which is a combination of the how many people in your town and the average per capita income of your town. And then you have the ability to put it into separate buckets. So in Southborough, we do 5% to an admin bucket, 10% for housing, 10% for open space, and 10% for historical. You can also use it for recreation, but we don't have, that was, I believe, a later addition, so we don't have a bucket set aside. And Tim was on CPC, so keep me honest.
That's right. There is no bucket for recreation.
Yep. It doesn't stop us from doing recreation projects. It's just there's no set aside.
That's right. And you can see how the match has dropped over time. A couple of years, it was really low. Those 2 years, 2017, 2018, if I remember correctly, those were the years that Boston and Springfield came online. Just big communities that suck up a lot of the available funding.
Yep.
Also, it's advantageous to have a higher level match, not just because of the quantity, but because of the number of rounds of funding you become eligible for if you are a town that. I'm stealing your thunder. Sorry.
No worries. So yeah, so right now we are a 1% surcharge town. If we moved, so the whole purpose of this is we have pretty much maxed out our borrowing capacity at our current 1% match between the townhouse and Burnett House and other places. It'll continue to, we'll get some more borrowing capacity as the surcharge increases and we pay down our debt. But there are a few large capital projects on the horizon that, in my opinion, are CPA eligible, right? They would still have to go through CPC and they'd still have to go to town meeting for vote. But in theory, we could use CPA funds for mainly the athletic fields at Algonquin. So the majority of that work, with the exception of just the turf and the shock pad, you can use it for the drainage and other pieces. Just the turf and the shock pad can't be used by CPA funds, but so a good chunk of the project would be CPA eligible. And this shows you, like, for fiscal year 22, at our 1% rate, we charged the taxpayers $374,000, and we had a round one match of $164,000. Because we're not at that 3% rate, we're not eligible for round 2 and round 3 matches. And every year that fluctuates, but it's roughly 12% for us. Other towns that are, less affluent and smaller can get up to 100%. So I think Lawrence and some of the other communities and some of the other less affluent towns have a higher match there. But it does certainly. So it just shows, the more you put into it, the more you get out of it. I did do a calculation based on, had we have done 3% the first time when we approved it in 2003, we'd probably be looking at about another $4 million in match, right? Not even how much money we'd get from the town, but just in match, we've left about $4 million on the table. Any questions on this part?
Yeah, this is a really important point. As the match was decreasing, there were people in town, as you saw from the votes, both votes were close. And there was an increasing number of opponents to the surcharge in town, because as the match got lower, the value got lower. And that is why CPC has not pursued an increase in the past. And I'll also note that several of those very vocal opponents were on advisory at the time. And so that's all changed. Advisory, at least last year when we talked about this with Andrew, he was a bit surprised by how positive advisory was about this possibility. This is something we're going to have to build up. We're going to have to educate people. The state has stabilized the match fairly recently, so that's a major step forward.
Yep, and I did talk to Mr. Mills, and they are bringing it up on the CPC committee meeting as we speak. I mean, the idea here is this would be a CPC article, that I'm just trying to assess whether or not advisory understands it, would be in support of it, to just kind of, get the ball rolling, the juices flowing. So besides the Algonquin fields, there's other projects down the road, especially in recreation, some housing, some historical. I was reading the master plan, and that kind of got my head going in terms of there's a lot of things that I think it could be, used by CPA, and who doesn't like a match on their funds, right? You're going to spend, you get a coupon for every $1 you spend, you get a little extra. So that's kind of, my thought process of bringing that here to get the thought process and everybody and see if it made any sense. In terms of Algonquin, this is what they're kind of looking to do is replace the stadium, field, and track with a turf field, the JV field, and the tennis courts as well, and some lighting. Then there's more slides on the actual plans. And I think there's a committee at Algonquin to look at it as well, and they've looked at a lot of the pieces, and especially I think they've looked at some of the health impacts of turf and so on and so forth, which it sounds like it's mostly due to the rubberized pellets in the turf, which are from ground up tires, which have metal and leach in the system. But there's a lot of different infills now. Pine is one that they use that's pretty good, but so I think they're actively looking at that, and it's a concern. But the turf certainly allows for more play, better drainage, and more use of the fields. But if this did go forward right now, the proposal is about 7.6 million. Southborough's piece of that would be little over 3. Probably $1 million to make it $1.5 million of the overall project couldn't be CPA eligible for the turf and the shock pad. So I think if we're left with, say $2.5 million of CPA eligible, we do not have enough bonding capacity to absorb that. Right? There's not enough room in our current surcharge to bond against it. Other communities like Drake, they did a similar project. They bonded the CPA stuff for 15 years. Other towns do 20. And then the non-eligible, the actual turf itself has a 30-year life, so they did it over 30 years. So I think it's one of those, if we wanted to use, CPA funds for this project, we don't have the capacity. So you would need to increase your surcharge to get the capacity to do the project. So it's kind of a chicken and an egg thing. So you need to, even before we'd approve the project, we would need the surcharge in order to have the capacity to approve the project. But you're not going to approve a project to get to 3%, approve the surcharge to get to 3% unless you have a project kind of earmarked to use it. So I'm kind of tying the two of these together.
This is a really interesting project, Andrew. Even if we don't have the money in the CPA to fund this project, there's a strong likelihood that it's going to pass through town meeting anyway.
Correct, but it'll be general fund.
Right, at which point it just gets appropriated through the general fund.
Correct.
We're still paying for it with tax money. We're just paying for it without a match.
Correct. So you get more bang for your buck. That's the general idea.
Right. And I think the important point that the public needs to understand, which they don't understand right now, because, is that the match has been stabilized, right? The last time the public talked about this, there was an overwhelming understanding that the match was going down, 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 and the state was doing nothing about it. And that's going to be a point we have to hit with people so that they understand.
Yeah. I mean, for me, even 20% is better than nothing, but 45%, or if we're at the 3%, 55% is great. Any questions as I kind of walk through that?
Yeah, I'm just curious quickly, based on the potential timeline for the Algonquin project, and say we had a special town meeting in the fall, and say we approved the increase from 1% to 3%. Have you looked at the math in terms of, would that give us the bonding capacity?
So I was looking at that today. So it's the hope for Algonquin is actually to start this next year. Technically, it would be possible. I think it might be unlikely, but how that would work is most likely is you would have to have this. So there's two. The CPA has to be a ballot vote in order to get the tax approved. So in order to get it on the ballot, there's two ways. You can bring it to town meeting. So we could bring it to fall town meeting, have it voted on there and put on the ballot in the spring, or you need 5% of registered voters to sign a petition. So I think the easiest one would just be through the town meeting. So if we assume we bring it to fall town meeting, it passes to go to the ballot, right? It's not, official then. Then it goes on the spring ballot in May. I believe that would allow us, because the surcharge is on your borrowing capacity is just on the surcharge in the town, not the actual match. So it's just on the town piece. So that should go in effect, I think, right after town meeting, the next tax cycle. And we would have enough money in the account already to sustain probably the first debt payment. So in theory, I think if we passed it by ballot in May, they could start in June, July of next year. But it's tight.
But you're also, just to clarify, so then the mechanism there in terms of approval of this project, right? It would this project would come before our annual town meeting in the spring, March, in theory.
Correct.
Which would before we've been able to do a thumbs up, thumbs down by vote on the CPA increase, right? So then what's the mechanics there? Because we can't vote to say use CPA funds if that, right? So
we may need to have a special in between there. I don't know if we can, say, so you don't have to wait for the fiscal year to start a CPA project as long as you're hitting prior year fundings. So as soon as town meeting's over, you can start the work. If you say it's coming out of, current existing funds.
Yeah, but I guess my question is, and sorry to get so far in the weeds. I'm just, it's a super interesting. I think it's a really important topic. But I thought that we started off with saying we don't really have the funds at the current 1%.
Correct. So the tricky thing is, how do you approve the project at town meeting from a CPC perspective, right, if you don't know the one? So that's what I'm saying. We might need to have a, maybe a June, July special town meeting to approve it. Or Tim, could it be? I think it could be on the ballot.
It could be on the ballot right after town meeting.
No, I mean the ballot to approve the CPC project. Does the CPC project have to be town meeting, or could it be a ballot? I don't know.
Oh, I think it's town meeting.
Town meeting. Okay. So yeah, maybe we would need a special, Eric, to vote on that.
Or can a warrant article be contingent on a subsequent or following vote?
I am not sure.
The alternative is to tell the schools to do a phased approach, right? They're not saving that much money by doing a big bang. So I think there are options.
Yeah. And, worst case scenario, they start the following June.
Right. But I mean, they don't have to build 2 turf fields at the same time, right? I mean,
correct. We'll save a little bit in economies of scale, but maybe 5%. I don't think it's anything major.
Right. I agree with you.
And I got that 5% from a calculation done at Drake. They did a very similar project at Drake. That was one of the questions. Do we have to do both fields at the same time? And they say you don't, but it's going to save you 5 to 7%. Okay. Yeah, I mean, then I think also there's other projects in the pipeline, whether there be historical, that would benefit from the extra match. So, but I think, certainly having a project that we know could use it is kind of what we would need to get the 3% change done.
The other thing I'll add is you never know when an open space project is going to come before you. somebody
Right.
decides to sell, if you're lucky, the town gets some notice and you have to make an immediate decision. And you need the bonding capacity in order to move forward.
Or it's a, what are the 61B? Is that what?
Mm,
So there's one tax relief where you get if you have recreational or farmland, where you get a tax deduction, where the town has right of first refusal for any sale. That was the Deerfoot farm, the Deerfoot property that went to the developers. We had an opportunity to buy that and turn it down. So yeah, to Tim's point, it's certainly good to have, or a housing authority or open space. I mean, there's certainly some of these that come up where there's an opportunity for purchase that you could go for it.
Yeah, I just, my quick, my line of questioning is I'm supportive of the move to 3%, right? I just think being really, really clear of what the reasoning behind it is, right? And right there, the argument for this project is, there's an argument there, but it's complicated. And so to your point, right, the points just made, there's a lot of reasons to do this. So I think, I'm gonna get there, starting with a lot of reasons, and the easy to understand, but then also, allowing
Yeah.
people to figure this out as well.
Okay. Why don't we do a straw poll? If CPC did sponsor an article to increase to 3%, would advisory be in support?
Andrew, I have a question. Do you think
Sure.
they're going to put this through for the fall town meeting, possibly sponsoring an article, or is that too fast?
I think they could. I don't think it would. It's not a complicated article. It's been done in many a town, so it's already written.
Interesting.
And it's just to put it on the ballot, right? It's not to actually
Oh, right,
approve
right,
it.
right.
I was
Okay.
gonna ask, when would the ballot, like, would there be one in the winter?
That's a good question, Tim. I don't know whether I was thinking we would do it in the regular annual one, but I guess there could be a special ballot. I don't know. I think the question for me is, I don't know how the stars align and what the order of operations is to get this done in June. But let's assume that, all the stars align and they can make it work. I guess Northborough's also thinking of using CPC funds or CPA funds for their portion as well, or a portion of it. So we won't be alone there. But I certainly, this is a big project that they brought it up in town meeting, and that was the first time many of us had heard about it. And so as I looked more, I said, it seems like a warranted project, and work needs to be done, but it's a price tag and it's a big hit. And I think getting a match certainly helps absorb some of that cost. The question I had too is, but the fields aren't in Southborough. But I did check, and it's fine if it's a regional piece. So they did that in Groton Dunstable as well, and both towns used their CPA funds. So I got a word on that's okay. Okay. So Eric, would you support something of that ilk? Okay. Marcy?
Yes, I like the idea of the match, and you did a great job explaining it. So it seems to make sense to me.
Tim?
Yes.
Okay. Adam?
Yeah, I've been kind of reading a little bit while you guys have been chatting. I do think I would support it at this point. Yep.
Great. Okay. I think advisory is unanimous, and maybe supporting it if something came up. But I think, my goal here was just to kind of give the CPC, that advisory, because in the past had not supported this, but they would support it if it came forward. And I think we have a good story to tell and a good plan. So I think that's some good news there. All righty. And any other business properly brought forth? Tim, do you want to maybe give an update on the HIPAA and the cyber piece you talked about?
Yes, briefly. I reached out to Sam Stivers. Sam is actually our attendee for tonight. Hello, Sam. Sam is still working with Mark Purple and Town Council to try to move that forward. We still need an opinion from Town Council about the town's covered entity status. It seems like we are a covered entity. And then we would need to discuss, and not we, the select board and the Board of Health would need to discuss steps to begin mitigating our HIPAA risk. And it's not just HIPAA, it's also various state privacy laws. That's where we stand there. Better news on the IT front is that we do have a new hire coming in, as I understand it from Jay. So we will have a department of 2. Our MIS director will no longer be alone, and this will hopefully free him up once the new resource is up and running. Hopefully free him up to focus additionally on some further cyber security mitigations. So looking forward to hearing in the future from MTC on the status of their audit and when Jay is ready to move some other things forward.
Great. And I think there was something, some note I saw. Hold on one second. Yeah, I think next week, select board, they're going to go with looking at doing a security analysis, Tim. So that's one of the things that's going to be in the select board agenda for next week. Anybody have any other items they want to bring up? All right. So public comment. Sam? Seeing none. So our next meeting is the 22nd. So in terms of topics, I know we covered off on them in the last meeting. For the next meeting, so Tim, if you get anything more on cybersecurity or HIPAA, if we find out what the security analysis thing from select board, we can bring that up. I'll check with Brian and Carla to see if they met with Tim Davis and the rec commission on what the rec revolving account amount is, and kind of they were going to do some data analysis there. If we can get that, we can talk about that piece. I have a preliminary calendar of different grants and deadlines that I can put on the screen, and if anybody sees any other grants that they want me to add to the list, I think that is one that's probably in the selectmen's purview. But I think we could work on the list and share it with them and just kind of have them keep it on their radar to make sure that the staff is staying on top of applying to as many grants as we can, or coming back and saying why they're not going to apply to the grants. I think that's a big piece. Eric, maybe you and I can work on the direct mailing costs piece and talk with town clerk and some other people in terms of what we're doing there and what do we legally have to do, what would be the ways there. I think we can report back on that. And then Marcy, I don't know if we want to, on the St. Mark's project, what kind of depth do we want to go in versus what we have already? We can go as deep as you think we need to go, but just kind of curious what your thoughts are.
Well, I think it's a little bit on hold at the moment, and we have a lot of still sort of unanswered questions, like as Tim's pointing out, are we going forward with the history walk?
Yep.
What's what is the final recommendation of the St. Mark's working group? What's the extent of the cost going to be to actually build a park if we're allowed to? So there's so many unanswered questions. I guess the biggest overarching question is, what is it going to cost to finish the project once we know that it's moving forward? Because it's not clear. I mean, that's really the big question, I think.
Yeah, which I think would come out of whatever the working group analysis is and any conversation with the builder. Okay, so we'll put that on hold and just kind of keep track of it. I'm sure that's going to come up in select board and places before it's going to come up here, so we can kind of report back from there. I'll take a look. I had a list of some of the priorities or legislative priorities that I thought we should look at. This is something similar that they did in the Northborough Finance Committee. They put together a list, and both them and the select board sent a letter to Senator Eldridge and our other representatives, kind of what our legislative priorities. And so I think we can come up with a next fiscal year list to send to them, but I'll put together a draft of which pieces, and I'll pull the legislation if anybody wants to see it, to kind of understand which each piece is. But a lot of that also comes from MMA. So if anybody has anything, send it on over. All right.
Hey, Andrew.
Yep.
Just a heads up. I'm likely absent in 2 weeks. I'm away on a
Okay.
getaway. So I know that while we're down a member and have a new one who's sort of just onboarding, that puts us close on quorum. So
Okay. Howard should be there, so I think should be okay on quorum. And I'm not sure if we will get another one appointed between now and then, but I think we should be okay. Everybody else can make the 22nd. Okay. And it looks like hopefully Zoom meetings will continue through December of 2023. They added it to the Senate budget approval. So it was approved by the Senate. I think now they're just waiting for the House and Governor Baker to sign off on it. So I would be surprised if they would remove that, but in theory, looking better. All right. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Got a second?
Second.
All right. Roll call vote. Eric,
Bye.
Marcy,
Aye.
Tim,
Aye.
Adam,
Aye.
and Andrew is aye. And Eric, I got you out before 9. Go Celtics.
I got a hockey game. That's what it is.